Conference is being held in Baku this week in Azerbaijan at a time of turmoil around the world. There's the election of a US president who is known to be a climate change denier. There are the deadly floods in Spain, and Germany, usually one of the loudest voices in the fight against climate change, is reeling from a government collapse. Deutsche Welle correspondent Lars Halter joins us now from Berlin. Lars, g'day. So what are you hearing from the conference in Baku?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, you said it, it's a really tricky environment there at the conference. Those deadly floods in Spain, the second time now, by the way, that hundreds are being killed by what is clearly a result of climate change. Certainly a reminder of how desperately we need action on that front. And no one made that more clear, of course, than Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. Earlier in the week, he literally begged attendees at the conference not to listen to anyone who tries to say that a climate transition will be bad for the middle or working class or the well-being of a country. He says to the contrary, it's going back to oil, it's a deregulation of the fossil fuel industry. That's what would be bad, not only for the middle or working class, but literally for any country ever to be struck by extreme weather events, which are, as has been pointed out many times, directly linked to climate change. So the message is clear in Baku. We need drastic action on climate change, but it's also clear that it won't come easy, whether it's because of powerful special interest groups or general financial worries.
And financing the climate transition has always been a sticking point. Are there any new ideas on that front?
Yes, indeed there are, and the German delegation is pushing hard for those, while Chancellor Olaf Scholz is actually not present in Baku. After all, his government just fell apart, like you pointed out too, and there's a lot to do for him at home. Germany has actually sent 4 ministers to the conference. They're making the case that certain wealthy countries like China, Saudi Arabia and other Gulf nations are asked to pay up too, something that is not happening yet. Those countries that I mentioned are still seen by the UN as developing nations and actually receive funds to help them finance climate measures in their countries, which sounds bizarre considering that they are among the economically most powerful countries in the world as it is. And they're also behind some of the most serious problems leading to climate change. Now, it's one thing, of course, to ask for a stronger financial commitment from certain countries. It's another thing to actually get that money, and it certainly doesn't look good at this point. Over the past few years, investments in oil and gas exploration have gone way up, risen by 30% just since 2021. And that is certainly a sign that renewable energies are not yet seen as interesting enough to attract the investments they would need.
But how optimistic are conference attendees that more money will eventually be directed into renewables?
Well, sadly, there is not too much optimism, and much of that has to do with those most recent developments in the US. With the election of Donald Trump to another term in the White House, there will most certainly be a tidal change in the US again. Less money will flow into green energy, certainly not more. During his campaign, Trump has repeatedly said that he wants to drill, which is kind of ironic because he said it so often that it seems he might be totally unaware of the fact that the US is already by a large margin the strongest country when it comes to oil and gas exploration. Also during his campaign, Trump met with executives from the oil sector and promised them to basically deregulate the energy sector entirely if they just gave him $1 billion in campaign funds. Now, as preposterous as that sounds and as corrupt as it is, it would certainly not be beyond Trump to follow through on such plans. So, a long story short, the need for action on climate change is higher than ever before, and the willingness or ability of countries even to actually step up is going down rather than up.
OK, we'll leave there. Lars Halter in Berlin. Thousands of people have joined a march towards New Zealand's capital, Wellington.